The Mesopotamian sun, heavy and blinding, beat down on the city of Shuruppak, baking the clay streets into a brittle ochre crust. This was a time of brazen prosperity and profound moral decay, where the temples glittered with gold, yet the people's eyes were shadowed by a deep, almost willful cruelty. In the midst of this chaotic opulence lived Noah, a man whose stillness stood in stark contrast to the surrounding fervor. Noah was a craftsman, his hands thick and calloused from years spent shaping cypress and cedar, but recently his work had taken a singular, consuming turn. He stood in the makeshift yard behind his modest dwelling, a plot of land barely large enough for the colossal project he had just begun sketching in the dust. The scale of his vision was absurd, a silent scream of wood and hope against the prevailing cynicism. His wife Naama watched him from the doorway, her face a map of conflicting emotions, love, worry, and a dawning, terrifying acceptance. She was the anchor of his sanity, but even her strength was tested by the isolation their path demanded. "The logs are here, Noah," she said, her voice low. "The lumber merchant scoffed, but he took the silver. Says no one in the city will buy wood that's been touched by you." Noah paused, wiping sweat from his brow. The merchant, like the rest of Shuruppak, saw him as a fool, a fanatic consumed by a bizarre delusion. For years Noah had preached, not with fiery brimstone, but with quiet, insistent pleas for change, warning of a cleansing that would sweep away the rot. His words were met with mocking laughter and open hostility. "Let them scoff, Naama," Noah replied, picking up a heavy axe. "This is not for them, not anymore. This is for what comes next." And though the knowledge forbidden and the giants the prophecy spoke of were not mystical beings here, they were the megalomaniacal excesses of the city's rulers and the rampant, unchecked social corruption. The true giants were men of immense power and depravity, whose laws favored the strong and crushed the poor. The knowledge they possessed was the brutal, pragmatic skill of domination. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were his only allies, yet their faith was constantly tested by their own interactions with the outside world. Shem, the eldest, tried to understand the engineering challenge, seeking logic in the dimensions. Ham, pragmatic and frustrated, saw the mockery in the eyes of his peers and often questioned his father's unwavering certainty. Japheth, the youngest, clung to the dream, but his youth made him vulnerable to doubt. That evening, as the dry, hot wind whispered curses around their small home, Noah gathered his family. He didn't speak of gods or angels. He spoke of the humanity they had lost. "The waters are not merely rain," he told them, his voice rough with unshed tears. "They are the tears of the earth, choked by the filth we allow. We build this vessel not just to survive, but to remember how to be human, how to be good." He unrolled the scroll he had meticulously prepared, a blueprint for the ark, a radical design of immense size, a challenge to every naval standard known in Shuruppak. "Tomorrow the building begins. We will work in silence and with prayer in our hearts," Noah declared. "The world will tell us we are mad. The world will try to break us. We must be stronger than their scorn." As Noah shoulders the weight of this impossible task, we must ask ourselves how we would react to such a monumental challenge. Would we build or would we succumb to the doubt? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to follow the incredible journey of faith and perseverance. The chapter closed with the sound of the first axe strike against the massive cypress log, a sound barely audible over the drunken revelry echoing from the distant center of Shuruppak, yet a sound that marked the beginning of the world's end and its renewal. 2 years melted into the relentless heat of the Mesopotamian plains. The initial absurdity of Noah's project had faded into a mundane yet potent source of ridicule for the people of Shuruppak. The colossal wooden structure, a hulking rectangular silhouette, began to dominate the skyline. It wasn't beautiful. It was a testament to impossible, exhausting labor. It stood as a silent rebuke to the city's opulent self-indulgence. Noah and his family lived in an increasingly hostile bubble. The city's inhabitants, the giants of corruption, didn't need to wield magic to hurt them. Their weapons were social exclusion and relentless mockery. Every trip to the market was a gauntlet of sneers. Ham, the most socially adept of the sons, felt the shame of their isolation most acutely. "Father, we need more pitch. The inner seams are weeping," Ham reported one sweltering afternoon, his tone flat. "The merchants are demanding triple the price now. They say it's the freak tax." Noah paused, his chisel resting against the massive timber. "We pay it, son. This vessel must be watertight. We have no other choice." "But they are stealing from us," Ham exploded, his anger finally breaking the surface. "They profit from your piety. Why do you allow it? If the waters truly come, let the consequences fall upon their greed." "Ham," Nama interjected gently, placing a cooling cloth on his neck. "Your father is not building this to punish them. He is building it because he must. His conscience demands it." Noah walked over to his son, his eyes tired but clear. "The true sin, Ham, is not the wickedness of others, but allowing their wickedness to poison your own soul. If we start demanding justice for their mockery now, we lose the very essence we are meant to preserve. This ship is a sanctuary from their moral decay, but we must protect the builders from it too." The real challenge lay in the sheer physical impossibility of the task. They were a small family building a structure intended for hundreds of people and livestock, using only primitive tools. Every joint was an act of faith, every plank hauled, a victory over exhaustion. Their days were a monotonous cycle of sawing, planing, and pitching. One evening, as Noah worked alone by the light of an oil lamp, a former neighbor, Zahur, approached the yard wall. Zahur was a renowned stonemason who had always viewed Noah with a mixture of respect and pity. "Noah, the elders are talking about you," Zahur whispered, glancing nervously at the nearby dwellings. "They say your insistence on this folly is an insult to the city's stability. They believe you are undermining the authority of the Great Ones, causing unrest." "I'm simply following the truth revealed to me, Zahur," Noah responded, not stopping his labor. "Truth or madness?" Zahur challenged softly. "They are planning to stop you. Soon they will send guards. They will say the wood is needed for city fortifications, or that your structure poses a fire hazard. They will find a legal way to destroy your dream." This was the core of the conflict. Human authority versus prophetic conviction. The threat wasn't supernatural. It was the chilling, calculated oppression of a corrupt bureaucracy. Noah's heart pounded. He knew he was running out of time. The pressure on Noah is immense. The world is closing in, threatening to destroy the one thing he has dedicated his life to. What advice would you give him right now? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're finding yourself drawn into this powerful human drama, hit the like button to show your support for Noah's struggle. The external pressure from Shuruppak began to take its toll, not through violence, but through doubt, a far more insidious enemy. Shem, the pragmatic son, was struggling with the ship's stability. He stood on the scaffolding, staring at the sheer size of the hull. "Father, mathematically, without modern keel design, this vessel is a cradle for disaster in rough seas. We've maximized the volume, yes, but at the expense of seaworthiness. Are we building a refuge or a coffin?" The question hung heavy in the air. Noah, usually so resolute, felt a cold knot of fear. The constant grinding work had eroded his certainty. He had trusted his inner guidance implicitly, but the physical reality, the overwhelming scale, the imperfections, the raw human limitations screamed back at him. Nama saw the weariness in his eyes. She took his hands, rough with pitch and splinters. "You haven't doubted the message, Noah. You've only begun to doubt the messenger, yourself. You fear you made a mistake in the calculations, that your hands were not skilled enough. The water, Nama, he murmured, his gaze fixed on the dry, cracked earth. Where is the water? For 6 years the sun has been a furnace. The rivers are low. Everyone sees my fear reflected in this drought. They call me the Rain Man, the fool who built a boat in the desert. His crisis deepened when Japheth, the youngest, made a heartbreaking discovery. While hauling water, he overheard a conversation between 2 city guards near their compound. They were discussing the imminent implementation of the safety decree to confiscate Noah's lumber. Japheth ran back, breathless. "Father, they are coming. Next week they'll take the wood. We won't be able to finish the roof." Panic, sharp and immediate, gripped the family. The years of sacrifice, the isolation, the sheer labor, all about to be erased by a bureaucrat's decree. Noah retreated into the half-built ark, sitting alone in the vast, echoing silence of the interior. This was his lowest point. He didn't question his faith in a higher truth, but he questioned his interpretation. Had he been too literal? Had he misunderstood the timing? Had his purpose been a quiet call for moral reform and not a massive physical construction project? He prayed, not for intervention, but for clarity, for strength to face the coming loss with dignity. When he emerged, he found his family waiting. They didn't offer answers, they offered their presence. They had already started working with renewed, desperate fervor, applying the final layer of pitch to the interior hull. "If they come next week," Noah said, his voice firming, "we will have done everything we could. We will not stop now. Ham, Shem, start cutting the support beams for the roof immediately. We seal this vessel, come what may." His doubt hadn't vanished, but the choice became clear. To act, even in fear, is the only path to overcoming despair. The struggle was no longer about the flood. It was about finishing the job before the corruption of man swallowed their endeavor whole. The greatest challenges are often those that test our belief in ourselves. If you're connecting with Noah's inner struggle, don't forget to subscribe to our page. We need your support to continue telling these powerful stories of human resilience. The impending decree from the Shurupak authorities acted as a deadline, injecting a frantic urgency into the family's labor. They worked through the nights, guided by the flickering light of lamps, their movements precise and desperate. Simultaneously, a bizarre, unexpected phenomenon began. Animals. It started subtly. A pair of shy gazelles appeared at the edge of the wood, watching the construction. Then, a few days later, a couple of heavy-horned aurochs, animals rarely seen so close to the city, lumbered into the yard and settled peacefully near the woodpile. This was not a mystical command. It was a consequence of the collapse of the natural order caused by the region's immense, unsustainable growth. Shurupak and the surrounding cities had relentlessly encroached on wildlife habitats. As water sources dried up and hunting intensified, animals, instinctively seeking a safe haven, began migrating toward the only place where no hunting occurred, and a small, reliable water source for the workers was maintained: Noah's compound. The sight of so many diverse creatures gathering around the strange, silent vessel became the final, powerful warning to the city, a sign far more compelling than Noah's sermons. The people saw it and laughed. "Look, the madman's zoo!" they shouted, throwing refuse over the wall. They believed Noah was hoarding the animals for some outlandish private feast. But the animals kept coming. Birds, rodents, even a massive pair of lions that settled under a makeshift shelter, their eyes calm. This gathering created a logistical nightmare for Nama, who now faced the impossible task of feeding and tending to a burgeoning menagerie. On the day the city guards arrived, led by a pompous captain wielding the safety edict, the scene was astonishing. The colossal ark stood almost complete, the roof partially sealed. Around it, the yard was a crowded, quiet expanse of creatures. The captain approached the gate, his swagger momentarily faltering at the sight of the lions. "Noah, by the authority of the Great Council, we are confiscating this lumber for city use. Disperse this unauthorized congregation." Noah, standing tall on the ramp, looked down at the captain. His face was etched with exhaustion, but his resolve was absolute. "You have come for the wood to build more walls, more prisons, more monuments to your excess." Noah's voice boomed, echoing off the wooden hull. "Look around you, Captain. The world you defend is already crumbling. The animals know what you refuse to see. They seek refuge from the very path you are forcing upon them." He didn't fight. He stepped aside, his hands open. "Take the lumber. But know this, you cannot confiscate the water that is coming. You cannot stop the consequence of your actions." Just as the captain raised his hand to signal the seizure, the air changed. The oppressive heat of years seemed to lift, replaced by a strange, clammy stillness. A sudden deep pressure settled over the plains, and a low, distant rumble, not of thunder, but of displacement, shook the dry ground. Noah stepped fully into the ark's doorway, his family and the last of the smaller animals filing in behind him. "The time for talking is over," he declared, his voice ringing with finality. "The ark is sealed. The consequences are yours." The captain, spooked by the strange tremor and the silent, watchful eyes of the gathered beasts, hesitated. He had come to seize wood, not to confront a phenomenon. The guards, unnerved, shifted their weight, their mission forgotten in the face of the inexplicable, palpable shift in the atmosphere. The main hatch was sealed from the inside. The light inside the ark was dim, filtered through the high, small windows, creating a sense of profound, closed-off sanctuary. The air was thick with the scent of damp wood, pitch, and living creatures, a volatile mix of fear and hope. Outside, the first signs of the disaster were not rain, but tectonic instability, a consequence of climate shift, water table depletion, and potential geological faults beneath the great river valleys. The ground shuddered violently, and the low, persistent rumble grew into a deafening roar. The people of Shuruppak, initially amused, now looked up in confusion and terror. The great paved avenues of the city cracked, and suddenly, violently, the rivers began to overflow their banks, not gently, but with a tidal force, as if the water table itself was erupting from below. Inside the ark, the sounds were terrifying. The family huddled together. They could hear the crashing of the city, the screams of the people, and the sickening sound of massive timbers groaning under immense pressure. Shem was frantically monitoring the hull. "It's holding, Father! The pitch is working!" The ark lifted not smoothly, but with a bone-jarring lurch. For the first time, Noah felt the true terror of the element he had worked so long to avoid. The human cost of the prophecy was overwhelming, a weight heavier than the ship itself. He closed his eyes, not in prayer, but in acknowledgement of the profound sorrow of the moment. The narrative shifts to the grueling year inside the ark. The family's challenge was not external but internal, managing the fear, the claustrophobia, the disease, and the logistics of caring for thousands of animals. Ham, initially resentful, found purpose in organizing the feed. Japheth, the dreamer, used his gentle demeanor to soothe the terrified beasts. Nama became the keeper of the calendar and the family's sanity. The months were marked by the relentless sound of water and the absolute, crushing isolation. They were the last bastion of human integrity in a world literally washed away by its own excesses. Their growth came from forced self-reliance and mutual dependence. Finally, the movement eased. The deep grinding stopped. The ark settled. After many more weeks, Noah climbed to the highest window and, with trembling hands, unlatched the cover. The air that rushed in was clean, cold, and fresh. There were no sounds of human life, only the vast, rhythmic expanse of water. He sent out a raven, then a dove. When the dove returned with a freshly plucked olive leaf, a fragile green sign of life, the tears Noah had held back for years finally fell. The flood was over. The consequence was paid. The ark finally rested on the newly formed earth. When the hatch was opened, the family stepped out into a world cleansed not by magic, but by environmental catastrophe, a world that demanded a new kind of beginning. Noah looked back at the colossal ark, his eyes reflecting the brilliant sun. He hadn't fought a literal battle with giants. He had won the infinitely harder battle against cynicism, despair, and self-doubt. He looked at his family, who had survived by their loyalty and labor. He didn't see divine fire. He saw a rainbow, a simple, breathtaking refraction of light through the lingering moisture in the atmosphere. It was a natural, beautiful phenomenon, and in it, Noah saw the new covenant, the human promise to value life and the earth. This is the end of Noah's untold story, a testament to human perseverance and the necessity of faith in the face of overwhelming odds. If this realistic, character-driven epic resonated with you, please share this video with someone who needs a reminder of the power of hope. And be sure to follow our page for more deeply moving historical narratives.